Welcome to Data Beats. If you haven't already, do check out our free newsletter on databeats.community. So joining us today is Boris Jabes, the founder and CEO of Census. And today, Boris and I are going to talk about the rapid evolution of reverse ETL. So, hey Boris, thanks for joining.
It's great to be here, Arpit. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show, Boris. So, let's start from the beginning. We first spoke in the August of 2020.
Good memory.
I actually remember it was August 24th of 2020. I was heading growth at Integromat. I remember telling you, we were growing really fast, but our data infrastructure was too basic to support our fast growth. We didn't really have the budget for a CDP, and we just set up Snowflake. You introduced me to Reverse ETL. And in your words, the idea of building a CDP out of the warehouse, right? That was really fascinating to me at the time. And in 3 years now, fast forward to today, Reverse ETL is rapidly becoming, a feature that's table stakes for all of MarTech, right? So from my vantage point, Reverse ETL was just a primer to something much bigger, like a much bigger vision. So please tell us about that vision and how you and your co-founders narrowed it down to Reverse ETL when you were just getting started.
Yeah. That's a great story to remember how we first met, and what a different time that was in August 2020, just both in the world and in our lives. Yeah, my co-founders and I, when we started Census, we didn't wake up saying we should build something called Reverse ETL or that's not really where our minds were. We just wanted to solve something kind of really common and fundamental in all companies that we had been in and that we had talked to, which is that getting customer data into every business tool seemed difficult, and consistent, good, useful, actionable customer data, right? We weren't trying to say, let's build a data pipeline company or anything like that. We really wanted to help solve these business problems that we found people, like humans on growth teams, ops teams, marketing teams, sales ops teams, were just under-leveraged. And so the idea was not just to say, let's help them move some data into those tools. It was actually to help them drive the business. And so what became Reverse ETL at the beginning was really just the narrowest version of that, right?
Yeah.
And so when you and I met, it was around the time, kind of like the year we had launched.
Yeah.
We really enabled very specific, we worked with a couple of data warehouses at the time. I think it was like 3 or 4, maybe 5. And we really helped push data into a specific set of kind of core tools, whether that was a Salesforce or a Marketo or a few others. And that would help a sales or a marketing team, get key information about product, especially product. But the goal was, again, not just to build a pipe. Was actually, for us, the long-term vision was always to help companies and people in companies leverage any data they have to be and make it actionable. Mm-hmm. So today, right, that has now expanded, like you said, to kind of what you call all of MarTech. It's really the entire marketing organization can be turbocharged with better data.
Yeah.
And then even the go-to-market organization, if you think of the modern kind of customer journey, it spans beyond just one department. And so getting all of those departments to be able to activate on data is really, really valuable.
Awesome. So now, besides the adoption of the cloud data warehouse, what else, in your opinion, has contributed to the rapid evolution and adoption of Reverse ETL?
I think there's 3 things that I can think of that have had, an accelerating effect on the adoption.
Okay.
One is kind of implied by what you said. It's the obvious thing. There's been 10 plus years of BI and APIs who have laid a foundation. There's all this data that's sitting there, but people want to act on it, right? And Census became this missing link between, having data and using data. And you can connect a source of truth, right, to like applications because they have an open API. So that's probably like the first basic fuel. But I think there's 2 other things that people don't tend to think about that have had a huge kind of accelerating effect. So the first is, over the last decade, the customer journey, to use, kind of the term of art, has become tremendously more complex.
Yeah.
Now, a company like that sells a product on the internet, right, will have millions of users, like casually. And they'll be in, hundreds of countries. And here's the key, dozens of channels, right? Dozens of applications. So if 10 years ago you were running an e-commerce website, it was like direct purchase and the attribution was simple. But now take a B2B sales cycle. It's multi-touch point, multi-stakeholder. If you're a consumer product, people will see 10 different ads in 10 different channels. And the customer experience spans a much longer time. You might have them interact with your support team and then your CS team and then your marketing team and then maybe again your sales team and then your product team. All of them will want to interact with this user over a huge span of time because they start free and then they go into a paid plan and then they end up in an enterprise organizational plan. These things force you to a place where I need a central brokerage of data that I can create a correct personalized experience. And then finally, it's less maybe exciting, but it's absolutely had an effect, is privacy, right? So pixels and cookies are kind of disappearing or half gone. And again, the easy mode went away, right? The easy mode of slap the Facebook pixel on your website and you're basically done is gone. And so you have to do something more. You have to join data from multiple sources to do something.
Yeah, that's awesome. We'll definitely get to privacy in a minute. Okay, so moving forward, I'm not fond of the term non-technical, right? Because I believe everyone who works in tech, has some level of technical aptitude. And I say this because I'm extremely passionate about technologies that beat the gap between the technical and the semi-technical, right? And when we spoke the first time, I remember when you explained to me how Census worked, I remember telling you that, I can learn SQL if I have a use case for it in my day-to-day. I just don't, right? But guess what? I ended up learning SQL and I think it's obviously very useful. But at the same time, I don't think growth and marketing people need to, become really good at SQL because, writing queries and debugging queries is just not the best use of their time and talent, right? So keeping that in mind, right? How does a data activation tool like Census sort of enable these non-data people working in GTM roles? So, folks like me back in the day to do more with data to power personalization across audience touchpoints.
So I completely agree with you that people should be able to be successful in the tools and techniques that they know. It's one of the reasons we're moving beyond kind of just this idea of reverse ETL and SQL-based, data access. I want to make data accessible to everyone in the organization. That has always been the goal of the company. And so Audience Hub is a point-and-click segmentation experience, right? Now it handles a lot of depth under the covers because our system has a context around what is related to what, right? So, if you have a purchases, let's call it object model versus a user object model, we can relate those two under the covers. And so there's lots of little places where even someone like you now can come in, use the tooling that you as as you say, a GTM person were most comfortable with. Yeah. But actually there's all sorts of places where you can pop under the hood here and there and do it with a little bit of code. And so that's kind of the way we're trying to design the product and reduce the kind of compromise you have to make between those two universes.
And so just, continuing the conversation about, how can a marketer take that actionable data and then, basically put it to action in downstream systems and GTM tools that they use in their day-to-day, right, to power personalization. What does that process look like? Like, do people go inside Census and set up those things, or do non-data people always wait for the data to land in their downstream systems?
I mean, I think if you care about improving your customer experience or driving growth, you should not wait on anything. You should go do. And so that's the whole point, right? Census you don't have to wait. You can go in and do it yourself. I would say every company I've seen, they use some data today, right? To make campaigns slightly more targeted and more personalized. It's not like people don't do anything. But often what I see is they're using maybe, like 10 fields, 10 columns on a customer, like, oh, they became a customer, or they opened an email, or they purchased an item. You get some amount of data. But what Census allows you to do so easily is to go from, a handful like that of, let's say, 10 fields and go to 50 fields, 50 different things about what you know about a customer. That's what it makes you, gives you as an ability. So that can be things like more behavioral data from product usage. It can be data from outside outside of marketing, like support tickets or offline conversions, like things that happen in the physical world or subscription data or third-party data. There's all sorts of places where you can get that extra knowledge about your users. And I assure you that, you can, there's no limit to kind of how much information you can personalize with. So I'll give you one or two examples just so it's concrete for people, right? Because I do think people should go build more tactical campaigns.
Yeah.
So Canva is a company with 125 million monthly active users. And they send very granular data to their email and mobile marketing tool, which is Braze. And so that allows them to send messages like, congratulations on creating your 10th design.
Yeah.
Or you started a presentation but didn't finish. How can we help, right?
Yep.
Those are the kinds of campaigns that really you need to do beyond the, hi, welcome to our product, right?
I mean, I wanted to implement a lot of this stuff back in the day at Integromat, and I actually took it for granted, like, oh, this stuff should be easy, right? But it wasn't. And I was really surprised that even like simple stuff, like, if I actually wanted to make sure that people like users, customers who have an open ticket don't receive an email from one of my campaigns, right? Because it's annoying, right? Like you have a ticket, your ticket hasn't been resolved, and you receive an email saying, hey, did you check out this feature, right? Which is ridiculous, right? But it was hard to like just make that workflow happen, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great example of, I bet you virtually no company does that. And
that's crazy, right? Because
it just requires like one extra kind of field, right? Has open active, support ticket.
Exactly.
And then you can make a campaign on that. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like it should be so easy, but it really wasn't, getting that data from Zendesk and, sending it to Customer IO and making sure that it all works wasn't easy, right? But it should be. It should be. So, well, this has been great, Boris. I think we could keep talking about this, but I think it's really important to also touch upon privacy, right? It's been 3 years since you introduced Reverse ETL, and of course, Reverse ETL relies on the data warehouse and all the data being in the warehouse. So, from a privacy perspective, what is the biggest advantage and also like the biggest downside of centralizing all the data in the warehouse?
I think it's a great question. And I think it's only going to get bigger, right? Not just for regulatory reasons, but I think consumer secular kind of trends around people care about this. So I think the advantages, let's just list them. They are actually pretty massive to this approach because you control all the data if it sits in your data warehouse. It is a repository that you control that is unbelievably flexible, so you can build whatever rules you want. It's very easy to find all the information about a single person for compliance. So if someone asks, what do you know about me? Well, guess what a data warehouse is uniquely good at? It's joining disparate sources of data together. Like that's the whole point. If you did that support ticket scenario, it means you now have a relationship between the support tool data and the, marketing tool data.
Yeah.
And then it's third, it's much easier to delete everywhere, because if you have one place to figure out what you know about a person and then they say, delete me, then something like Census can come in and say, well, we can do that, right? Because we do it out of this single kind of choke point. So the advantages are really significant, I would say.
Yeah.
But to your point, in all things in engineering, there are trade-offs. So I would say the biggest disadvantage or trade-off you have to make with this architecture when it comes to privacy is it's a little subtle, but a lot of companies have historically handled permissions internally in their company by application. So whoever has access to Salesforce, they see these things. Whoever has access to Customer IO sees these things. And that was enough to kind of think about your compliance in that way. And that no longer works. So you have to do all of the permissioning inside one system, which is the warehouse. So you have to think about it kind of logically rather than physically, if that makes sense. And which is definitely like not a trivial problem when you start having a company with enough humans in it that can all access data.
Awesome. Thank you, Boris. Thanks for your time, and you have a great day.
Thank you.
Help beat the gap between data people and non-data people for good. Join us on databeats.community.